Hi, everyone. Welcome to Founders Grid, sponsored by Gaper. Today, we are with Victor, the managing director of Winning by Design. Hi, Victor.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing really well. How about you?
Doing very, very well. I'm excited to chat with you this morning.
Thank you for being here. So, can you tell our viewers a little bit about what you do over at Winning by Design?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I am a managing director at Winning by Design. We are a sales consulting firm, headquartered in
Mm-hmm.
Silicon Valley, but with offices all around the world. We help primarily tech startups to figure out their go-to-market strategy and build revenue engines that will allow them to hit their goals. So that includes things like helping them to figure out the right strategy, helping them to figure out the right messaging, the processes that their teams should follow, and then training their teams on how to execute those best practice processes. And we do this for marketing, sales, and customer success. So the entire revenue engine.
Okay, interesting. So, could you tell us a bit more about your client demographic? Like, who are your clients? What kind of companies are they?
Yeah. So, like I said, for the most part, they are technology companies, although we do
Hmm.
work with a good number of service companies as well, and just traditional product companies. I think for the most part, they are, tech companies. So very much
Hmm.
focused on, technology and software, selling B2B. So selling to other businesses that are buying that software to, help their people be able to better accomplish their goals.
I
Yeah.
understand.
So
Okay.
yeah, so usually the companies that we worked with now at Winning by Design are a little bit more mature. So I would say they are, Series A and above companies. But throughout my career, I've had a lot of experience working with different types of companies, earlier stage companies, even down to solopreneurs.
Oh, okay. So, okay. Just to get a better understanding of where you're coming from, our viewers always enjoy knowing how directors and CEOs came about into the roles which they currently have. So, how did you come about becoming the managing director of Winning by Design?
Yes, sure. Um, I don't know. It was interesting. I started my career actually practicing law. So I was an
Law.
attorney. Yes, indeed. A lot of people are often surprised to hear that.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
I started off practicing law, and ultimately decided that that wasn't the right fit for me. And so I always knew I wanted to be kind of on the decision making side of business. And so I made the leap to jump into business. And I think one of the few things I was qualified for with my legal career, if I didn't want to continue practicing, or at least one of the easiest opportunities to jump into the business world, was through sales. And I loved it. I still very much do. And that limited experience selling gave me enough of a background that I was able to meet a successful entrepreneur who helped me found my first company. And so that was the first time that I'd ever had to build a sales organization from the ground up. So, prior to that, I
Okay.
was, like I said, practicing law, or I was, just selling as an individual seller. But then,
Okay.
when I became an entrepreneur and I founded my first company, it was the first time I'd built a sales organization from the ground up, and I realized how hard it was. Even someone with my background in sales definitely made a lot of mistakes that I felt like if I had the right kind of sales coaching and advice, that
Hmm.
we would have avoided a lot of those mistakes. And so, I kind of devoted unfortunately, that startup didn't last. But I decided to start another one right after, to help coach early stage founders and how to develop their sales strategy and,
Okay.
acquire their best customers. And so, yeah, that's what I started doing. And I did it for a few years. Obviously, there was a lot of demand for it. And long story short, I met Winning by Design, and they acquired my firm here in New York.
Okay. So, could you go a bit detail into? So, I want to know when or what made you decide, okay, yeah, I enjoy sales, but why
Mhm.
don't I make this into a business? So, going from selling something to selling the service of teaching it,
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
did that happen?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. I think it started off with, as it always should start off with, seeing a need,
Hmm.
right? And so, my personality is one that, I feel whenever I see a problem, I feel like I need, and I connect emotionally to that problem. I feel like I need to solve it. And
All right.
so going through the experience of building my own company, and building the sales strategy, and hiring salespeople and all that, taught me that it was really, really difficult to do so. And then I turned around and I looked, especially in the technology world, but certainly outside of technology, there were just a lot of founders out there who were either technical experts or subject matter experts, and they didn't really know how to sell their products. And
Hmm.
it was clear to me that a lot of, certainly, technology businesses and even services businesses, they rarely fail because the people don't know how to do the work that they're proclaiming they know how to do, right? Whether you're a
Okay.
technologist and, writing code, um, you know, more often than not, a startup that fails, not because of the skill or lack of skills or the inability to build a product. It's the ability to build something that they can sell on a regular basis,
Hmm.
enough to make it profitable. And so, yeah, so I saw a need in the market, and I felt like, it would be pretty easy to coach these entrepreneurs in a way that limited the amount of mistakes that they made when they were trying to sell their product. And as you might imagine, if you take too long to sell anything, and you're starting a company, your chances of failing are significantly higher, right? And so,
Yeah.
I felt like I could have a real impact on early stage companies, to avoid those mistakes. And as I continued with my work, I realized very quickly that this was a problem not faced only by early stage companies, but by companies of all sizes.
Hmm. So, okay, so with solopreneurs or entrepreneurs who really want to go forward with an idea they have, is is having a sales mentor like a 1 month process engagement, or is this something which could stick around with them for years and see how their sales approach differs, how their products mature? So
Mm-hmm.
how does the sales mentor go with the timeline of a startup?
Yeah. I I mean, this is very difficult, but I think that if you are starting a company and you don't have, sales experience, then you should partner with a someone with that level of expertise as soon as possible. So whether it's people who are, whether it's a co-founder who,
Hmm.
knows how to sell and can, handle that, while someone who's more focused on the business side of things focuses on the business, or you hire a sales coach, because to me, you know the sooner you have one, the better you are, the more likely you are to avoid mistakes, and that those mistakes can be costly, right? Like I said a few minutes ago, the delay in acquiring your customers, just makes it more likely that you're going to fail. And so, you know, extending that logic, the sooner that you have someone who's there to help you avoid failing by coaching and teaching you best practices, the less likely you are to suffer that negative fate. But I know that that's not really practical for everybody, to be able to
Hmm.
find a sales coach or find a co-founder who has deep sales experience. And so what I often advise is getting sales training as soon as possible, because there are
Sales
best
training. Okay.
practices. Yeah, there are best practices to this stuff, right? People seem to think that sales is like this magical skill that some people are born with, and they just say magic words and
Yeah.
persuade everyone of what they want them to do. But it's not like that. There's been a lot of research, science-based research over what works for persuasion purposes, how to have successful conversations, and decades of data on what good salespeople do versus average salespeople. And so, you can maximize your chances of success by learning these best practices. So, yeah, I would say as early as possible for an entrepreneur to get a sales coach. If that's not possible, then they need to get as much sales training as they can as quickly as possible.
Interesting. Okay. So, in your career as a sales coach, what is the number one mistake? If you could give us like this freebie,
Of
this
course.
advice, this number one mistake that entrepreneurs make everywhere, what would that be in you for experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's thinking that the product is going to sell itself. And I mean that in a variety of ways, right? So thinking that the product is going to sell itself, so I don't need to worry about sales in the early days. I just need to worry about building a product. And oftentimes that building of a product is done kind of in isolation without, getting customer feedback. So that, for obvious reasons, can be problematic because more often than not, the first thing that you build for the market is not going to be right, and it's
Yeah, it's
better to
not
build it with.
gonna be for the market. Yeah, it's gonna be for you with your ideas about how the
Yes,
customer will respond.
exactly. So the first thing is thinking about engaging customers in the development of the product. So that's a pretty common mistake. And I would say the other big, like, sales related mistake, or the other way that people think the product is going to sell itself, is that that when they are in front of customers, the best thing for them to do is to speak about the product. So, almost 100% of the time when I listen to inexperienced entrepreneurs and founders who are selling for the first time, they, let's say they're in a 30-minute sales conversation, 20, 25 minutes or so of the conversation is going to be spent um, pitching their product, right? Talking about
Mhm.
how great their product is, all the logos of companies that they've worked with, or their experience and how it does this and that and this feature and that. And what that misses, and what sales best practices and research makes evident, is that you're not really tailoring what you're saying to the needs of the customer, and you're not really understanding the needs of the customer. And so you're spending time pitching to them maybe features or elements of your product that they may not need.
That
And
they may not need. Yeah.
exactly. And the research is there's no question about this.
Hmm.
Most research shows that the best salespeople are listening, 60, 70% of the conversation, not
Hmm.
talking. But and when they are, and to accomplish it, they're asking really, really good and thoughtful questions about the customer's needs before they position themselves as a solution to those needs or those challenges. And so I would say that's the second big mistake that I see. The first one is, not engaging customers
Hmm.
in the development and the building of the product and getting their feedback. And then the
Hmm.
second one by far is thinking that the product will sell itself by pitching the product, spending most of their sales conversations with prospects pitching the product as opposed to listening.
Yeah, I get it. Okay. So with so if I remember correctly, last 1 year we've been in, on and off lockdowns, depending on which part of the
Yeah, of course.
world you're from. COVID-19 hit us really bad. I want to understand from a sales perspective. I feel like my understanding of sales is very you go have a chat with someone in person. So if
Mhm.
that in-person communication is no longer there, you can't really meet people. You gotta stay 6 feet apart and all that.
Mhm.
How has that affected sales in general, and how has that affected the work that you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's affected sales in a very significant way, and it will continue to affect sales for the foreseeable future. I don't think sales will ever be the same after COVID, and
Hmm.
for exactly the same reasons that you explained. I think
Hmm.
for most people, most salespeople, there was a default assumption that face-to-face selling, particularly for larger ticket items, was necessary to developing trust
Hmm.
and relationships
Yeah,
with
yeah, exactly.
prospects. I think COVID has challenged that because while yes, there are a lot of organizations that have struggled with the lack of face-to-face engagement, there you can see a lot many that have thrived, right?
Yeah.
Technology for in particular is a sector that I think has thrived.
Hmm.
And the companies that are handling it the best are the ones that are accepting the reality that hey, the usual face-to-face stuff is not going to work anymore, and it's time to really invest in digital engagements, how to optimize digital engagements. Leveraging video more successfully during the sales process, so to start developing those to developing that trust and relationship between clients. I think to some extent it forces us to go back to the basics as when you're communicating with clients because when you're
Hmm.
face to face there it's easier to maintain somebody's attention than if you're
Yeah.
digital and having a conversation over Zoom. And I think even more so in that context you need to be listening more than talking because
Hmm.
it's very easy if you lose somebody's attention for them to start checking their email or something like that when you're having a remote meeting with them. And so yeah, I
Yep.
think COVID has forced organizations to really think about how to optimize the sales experience. Some of them have done it better than others, but I think the ones that have been most successful are the ones that have embraced this challenge and dove headfirst into figuring out how ways to address some of the shortcomings of remote selling.
Interesting. Okay. Uh, well, those were the questions I had. If you have any other advice or piece of information you'd like entrepreneurs who are hearing this to have, please, this is your stage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think I would go back to the advice that I started with at the beginning of the conversation. Get sales training as quickly as possible.
Get sales training.
Learn
Okay.
learn the best practices as quickly as possible. There
Hmm.
are, this is not magic. Sales isn't magic. It is a skill, just like every other skill. And to the extent that one wouldn't become it would be imprudent for one to become an entrepreneur without learning at least the basics of accounting and financial
Yeah.
management. I think learning the basics of sales is absolutely critical because frankly you can't even do the finance stuff without the sales coming in. And so that would be my
True.
number one advice. At Winning by Design we offer these public open courses monthly where we teach sales 101 best practices. Anyone that's
Oh, okay.
interested can go to our website at winningbydesign.com and just look for open courses or training, and you should be able to see what we're offering there. But whether it's with Winning by Design or any of the countless other firms that are out there, even if it's just watching a bunch of videos on YouTube and really taking it in,
Hmm.
I think by far my number one recommendation for all salespeople is to learn how to sell.
Perfect. Thank you for your time, Victor. We are so happy to have you here with us.
Yeah,
Take care. Bye
absolutely.
bye.
Thank you. Have a great day.